the idea is that in a subsequent, I mean, I'll show you in the future, but in one of the other poster, we use this idea for essentially investigating the quirks of ICHD3. So, I mean, in the big picture, what happens is this. In the big picture is that because you're able to encode all of ICHD3 into a series of numbers, then you are able to work with the ICHD3 as though it is big data, essentially. So there are two big implications. The first one is the research implication, and the second one is the clinical implication. The research implication is that because you're able to translate into a big data, you can then analyze this big data, mathematically. So, for example, one of the questions that I was thinking about is like, well, let's say you see a patient with just one kind of headache disorder. Is it possible to diagnose this patient with two different kinds of primary headaches? So this question comes up quite often in the real world. For example, I think there is a recent debate, I think in a paper, I could be wrong, about whether cluster headache is really just migraine. Well, I mean, I think this is actually kind of a commonly debated thing where, if somebody has cluster headache and they have aura, is this really migraine or is this just cluster headache because it satisfies the cluster headache criteria? Some people would say that the cluster headache with aura is possible, is a phenotype. It could be a possible phenotype of the cluster headache itself. Silverstein, I think, had a pretty old now paper about that. Other people thinks that, maybe if you have cluster headache and you have aura, then that's just an implication that you have actually two different headache in coexisting. I think Arlie May had a paper out. Dr. May had a paper out on that. So I mean, So this question is not impossible. It's quite common. Okay. So anyway, so the thing is, the good thing about essentially encoding all of ICH3 as a list of numbers and data is that you can answer this question, and that's actually one of the other posters. So essentially, you can answer it pretty easily. All you got to do is multiply to the ICH3 encoding by itself, which would generate for you all possible combination of ICH3 diagnosis as number form. And then you just essentially filter out all the ones that doesn't make logical sense in this number form, then translate it back into words. So you can answer these questions in a research point of view. You can also answer other kind of related question. For example, because now you have ICHD3 as a series of numbers, you can ask yourself, well, are there primary headache or headache phenotypes in combination that makes clinical sense, but does not actually make ICHD3 sense? So, for example, are there headaches that looks like cluster headache but doesn't satisfy the criteria that would otherwise satisfy any other primary headache diagnosis criteria? I mean, there certainly are these things, but then you can then use this technology to essentially say, try to quantify how many of these there are. And you would otherwise not be able to do that unless you write an algorithm that picks exhaustively list them. And this is actually quite impossible because it seems like, according to my project, there are at least 99 phenotypes in the ICHD3. So if you take a yes or no for 99 phenotype, then you have 2 to the 99 power, which is quite a big number. This number is astronomical. So you can't really actually have your computer go through all possibilities. In fact, we tried to do this calculation. If you do a 2 to the 99 power, it would take if you do 10,000 computation every single second, that would still end up with a couple of years for you to do that. So you can't really tackle this problem head on. The only way to do that would be to essentially encode it into some other form, such as like a number system form, and essentially use number theoretic ideas to tackle this. Anyway, so that's the research part. Okay, so the clinical part is quite easy. The clinical part is because you can encode things into ICHD3 like this. You can also encode patient profile, clinical profile into this similar kind of format. And because of this nice property that you cannot divide the prime number by another prime number, you can essentially automate diagnosis. So Yeah, you can essentially just make the computer diagnose any primary headache you want according to ICHD3 by using this method.